Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Gleacy.
And I'm Al.
Here at Forever I Do, we want to connect, impact, and inspire thriving marriages. So, today we're talking about conflict. Yes. Today we're going to talk about conflict, which is a much needed subject for any and everybody.
So, why is that?
Because we all have issues, we all have problems, and we don't know how to deal with them. Starts with dealing with the conflict.
And we can only do that by actually acknowledging that the conflict exists. I know that we once lived under the rumor, and some of you may still actually live by this, that you can agree to disagree and then just plunge forward in your relationship. But the thing is, like, in conflict, it's either resolved or it's unresolved. There's no such thing as agreeing to disagree. All that does is just leave the conflict unresolved, and now you walking around, you're carrying that thing with you. And the next time conflict arises again, what you will.
You'll be dealing with that on top of whatever's at hand. So how do you deal with conflict? Like, what's the steps that you take to deal with conflict?
Again, you got to acknowledge that conflict exists. And the only way to do that is actually to be truthful with your partner, to speak the truth in love. I mean, that may hurt. Like they say, like, the truth hurts, but you actually have to speak the truth in love and understand that your spouse is not your enemy. That they're coming at you because they love you and they want to resolve this thing. They want to move forward. They want you to be walking in agreement or agreement. So again, there's no such thing as agreeing to disagree. I mean, you either resolved that conflict or you didn't.
I remember, like, when we would go through conflict, and I had a hard time expressing, like, how I was feeling. And I remember you saying something like, a statement like, it bothered me when you did X, Y, Z, and it made me feel. So you taking it off of your spouse and talking about yourself.
So I mean, like, when you're resolving that conflict, you don't want to be pointing the finger. You don't want to be beating down your partner and making them feel like it's all their fault. So one of the things that we actually started to apply was a statement that I've learned in, like, a conflict resolution class, and it wasn't really I guess it wasn't about marriage, but when I learned that technique, I was like, I gotta apply this in my marriage because we had so much unresolved conflict. And the bottom line was, you take the onus off of pointing the finger, and you point the finger back at yourself by just saying, like, look, when you left your clothes on the floor,
which I don't do,
you made me feel like I was the maid. And as a result, like, I was upset about that. So you didn't point the finger at them and say, hey, yo, you dirty, you need to clean up after yourself. I ain't your mama, I ain't your daddy, or whatever. I mean, you taking the onus off of them and you pointing it back to yourself and telling them how you felt about the actual action. And then you can start to kind of digest that and so forth and kind of unpack it.
And I think it's important for the other person to listen to exactly what you're saying.
I mean, listening is key. Like, you actually have to hear what they're saying with an ear of, again, like, they're not your enemy. Like,
they're coming from a good place.
And they're just trying to speak to you so that you can understand where they're coming from. And again, like, you have to be able to listen with an understanding ear and not with an ear. And I will say that I was actually guilty of this, listening to respond, to plead my case, Your Honor, so that I can win. It was not about listening to actually resolve or even to be empathetic to my spouse or to understand. It was like, I'm just like waiting for them to stop talking, because now I'm about to go in. Like, we about to do this. We about to have some real, like, heated, like, what do we call it?
Intense fellowship.
Yes. Some intense fellowship or whatever. We about to battle. We about to go back and forth.
And I think I had a problem with that as well. And in order to help know that we're listening to what the other person's saying, we started using the whole paraphrase. So like you'll say something, I'm like, okay, so what you're saying is, and then we will paraphrase what we heard, because sometimes what you hear is not really what they said. So it kind of helped us to kind of break down those barriers in that way.
Yeah, because you have to understand too that you hear through your own filters.
Yeah.
So everything that you have encountered in life, all of the conflict that you have encountered in life, when you get into it again, you hear through that same filter again. Yeah. So again, like we again will apply this technique where we would just say, so what you're saying is, and then we would give our version of what we thought we heard. And guess what? If it was off, you had to listen again until you got an understanding of what they were saying. You cannot move forward. I mean, if you thinking you hearing that, again, you're dirty, you always leaving your clothes all around, you just filthy, you're a bum or something. If that's what you're hearing, if that's your filter, maybe mama used to say that to you or whatever, or dad used to say that to you when they were cleaning up after you, or your actual, whoever used to say that to you. And now that's all you hear when somebody revisits that sore subject in your life. So again, you have to actually speak. So what you're saying is, you don't like when I leave my clothes out. Bingo. That's exactly what I'm saying. If you could just pick them up and put them in a laundry basket or something like that. But again, you just actually getting that conflict out and you seeking understanding. Right. So that again, you can move forward, because just circling back real quick, there's no such thing as agreeing to disagree. Right. It's resolved or unresolved. Right. And then you start with those small conflicts, and you learn these skills and different things like that. So when you get to a big conflict, you already have these things in place. Like it's part of who you are, and you're able to deal with those other conflicts. So what happens when you have like people that don't want to deal with the conflict? Like how do you do that? So like say like you like to deal with it right then and there. Yeah. Me, not so much. Like I want to go deal with whatever I'm dealing with in my head and come back and revisit it. So how do you maneuver through that? And again, like I remember we would face this where, again, the conflict is here. Mm-hmm. We're going to battle this out until like we are done. Like whenever that is. Not when we agree to disagree, but when we actually are walking in agreement. And the walking in agreement doesn't mean that you absolutely 100% agree with everything the person says. It means you understand, and now you can move forward again together. But again, getting back to that point, you actually have to give the person the time to unpack their self, but they aren't going into another room, or they're not leaving the house to build up evidence or to get more angry or to get heated or whatever, so that they can come back with a better case. Mm-hmm. They should be going away to go to God in prayer, to ask for like that peace, so that they can actually resolve that conflict. And you should have an agreed upon a time when you're going to come back together. So you should say, look, like I can't do this right now. Let's circle back at 6 o'clock, or let's circle back after the kids are asleep, or you're going to have to give me a couple hours. It's 6 o'clock now, so 8 o'clock, I'm going to pray about this, and then we can sit down and talk. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, I ain't talking about this right now. And just leave it there. Yeah, you in our room angry, they in one room angry, and now y'all don't want to be in each other's presence. Mm-hmm. And then when you do come together, it's the middle of the night, and now you both going to bed angry. And I mean, the word says that you shouldn't go to bed angry and so forth. I even remember like an analogy that was given to us, that conflict is like you and your partner are going up a mountain together, and as you resolve that conflict, you're coming down the mountain. Mm-hmm. The goal is to always come down together. Right. But if you resolved it in your mind and you like, okay, they don't want to talk about it, I'm over it, like I'm done, I'm going to sit here and watch the game, and they in the other room still festering in that anger, you came down the mountain. And you left they still up there. You left them up there. And again, like walking in agreement, you both coming down that mountain. You're coming down together. Yeah. Like unresolved conflict is like poison to your marriage. Absolutely. I mean, again, agreeing and disagreeing. I keep harping on that because you hear people say it so often. And again, it's nothing but poison. Like you are still dealing with that unresolved conflict, so it's in you.
Right.
And now it's just festering there, and it's poisoning everything you hear now from your spouse, from your partner. Every time you hear something from them, you are revisiting that conflict in your mind. You may not say anything about it, but it's coming back to your mind. And again, you're just holding on to it until that moment where you either implode and do something destructive to yourself, whether it's drinking or deciding I'm going to hit the bar tonight and I'm going to pick somebody, whatever you implode or you explode, and now you're blowing up at your spouse, at your partner. They could do something simple like they spill sugar on the floor, and now you blowing up. Oh, here you go again. Like you just a bum. You like now you blowing up and everything over something that's really not that serious. Or you have children in the house, and now they do something you don't like, or they do something that trigger what happened with you and your spouse, and now you're going off at them. So again, like there's no such thing as agreeing to disagree. You either resolve that conflict or you don't. And it's not about being right. It's about resolution. Right,
and walking together. Yeah. What are the steps that we want to leave them with of how to handle conflict?
So again, you want to acknowledge that the conflict exists. Don't walk around acting like everything cool, or walk around not speaking and things of that nature. Again, all you're doing is harboring that conflict in your heart. And you cannot be walking in agreement if you're harboring something against your spouse, against your partner. So acknowledge that it actually exists by speaking the truth in love and trying to seek understanding. Be empathetic with yourself.
Yeah, and then recognize there is no agree to disagree.
Yes, throw that old nonsense out the window. There's no such thing as agreeing to disagree. You either resolve the conflict or the conflict is left unresolved. There is no in between. There's no such thing as agreeing to disagree.
Okay, and then don't leave your spouse at the mountain.
Yes.
Or at the mountaintop.
Yes. Again, like the goal is for you both to come off that mountaintop together in agreement, walking in agreement. Does not mean you agree 100% with what your spouse or significant other said, but it means that you have sought understanding and you have decided that you're going to walk towards your vision together.
All right. That's it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.